It seems to me that every time we're learning Yonesh Teres Chassidus, we end up learning Moidani, which is itself a good thing. I thought, especially since today is Beis Nisan, so we'll learn something from the Rebbe Rashab. So we'll do Aleph and Beis, and we'll skip around. First of all, in Oist Aleph, the Rebbe brings several biurim about in Yono Shal Teres Chassidus, what Teres Chassidus is about. Some of them explain the purpose of Teres Chassidus, and some of them explain the effect of Teres Chassidus. Some explain the Chiddush of Teres Chassidus, but only one of them talks about what the inyan of Teres Chassidus. I haven't found a beer why the Rebbe puts all of these together under the heading of Inyono Shel Teres Chassidus. Could be the word Inyono itself lends itself to, first of all, what is the interest of Teres Chassidus? The goal. And the other pshat in Inyono is, what is the idea of Teres Chassidus? And the third, what's the subject? So, B'negel Inyono Shel Teres Chassidus v'achidush shebo, what the chiddush in Teres Chassidus al chelki ha'Torah shenizgalo lefoneo. In other words, in the attacks against Hasidus, remember this is the Yutiskist of Sikha. And the attacks against Teres Hasidus, there were two conflicting kinds. One is, how can you come up with a new Torah Shaloshorim of Histenu? And the other was exactly the opposite in a way. So what's new? Why is this needed? And why couldn't you get whatever you get from Hasidus, from other parts of Torah, without any kind of new movement or new teaching? In addressing them, Nebru Biurim Rabim, Umehem, Aleph, Bizmanu Shalabal Shem Tev Hoyo Olam B'Matzav Shel Histalfus. The world was in a state of a faint. The Rebbe brings in the Ha'oretz that often it's quoted as Yidden were in a state of a faint. After the debacle of Shabtai Tzvi Machshmoy and after the Gzeiras Tachvetat, so Yidden were depressed, begashmis uberuchnis. So that's a matzav of a faint. Golus bechlal is shina. But in shina gufe, a much stronger kind of shina is his alphas, where the person goes unconscious. Val yedei giloy habal shem tov. V'toira Chassidus nis oirer ha'olam mei histalfutzoi. So the world came out of its state of faint. Now, be'emet, this beer was about the Baal Shem Tov, because it continues there in the source. The source is the Ktav Yad of an old Ktav Yad, Lo Noida Lemi. It's not attributed specifically to any one of the Rabbeim, but the Rabbeim quoted it. And it explains about the Baal Shem Tov that the Baal Shem Tov's name was Yisroel, which is the name of Yidden Bechlal. So just as when a person has fainted, you don't whisper any name in the telephone book. You whisper Dafke, his name, because his name is the thinner for Chayes, so that his name will bring him back to life. So when a person's asleep, you can talk to him and he'll wake up. You can tap him and he'll wake up. But when he's bizdalfis, none of that will work, because the Chayes has receded too far to be aroused by a word or a touch. Tafke, when you mention his name to him, that's when he comes to. And being that the whole Klal Yisrael was in a state of a faint, so the Eibishter whispered into the ear of Klal Yisrael, he whispered the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael, as a means of bringing them around. Now, this was about the Baal Shem Tov. Over here, it's V'Torah Chassidus. The Torah Chassidus is what brings Yidden around. It has nothing to do with that moshel of a person who fainted and he's revived by mentioning his name. Torah Chassidus is not l'cha'oira, the name of Yidden that would bring them around. But maybe, according to the Rebbe's Bia later, that Torah Chassidus is Bechinas Moshiach. And Moshiach is the name of every single Yid. Like the famous Chernobyl Zvort, the Torah Koichav Miyankiv, the Koichav is Moshiach, or the Koichav is Ayid. Every Yid Be'emes, his name is Moshiach. Al Tigu b'Mashiachoi. So maybe that's the pshat that Torah Chassidus brings out Klal Yisrael from their faint. Second beer, Chosid hu she'oise lefni mishuras hadin v'kemaimer abisteinu zechronim levrochas soirfon, he who burns his nails, Chosid. And Tosfos asks, so why doesn't everybody do it? Why not the tzaddik dafke the Chosid? And Tosfos explains that burning part of one's body can be harmful to the one who burns it. But the Chosid is the one who's so worried that somebody else should not possibly come to harm that he'll burn the nails, that nobody will come to harm for sure, even though it can affect himself. That is Lefnim Mishura Sadin. So more generally, a Chosid is one who does Lefnim Mishura Sadin, Af al Gav Shemazik Loi. So Torah Chassidus is to bring us to a state where we act Lefnim Mishura Sadin.
Nobody behaved like that before.
Huh?
Nobody behaved like that before.
The Gemara said that Chosid is Toilfon. Did anybody behave Lefnim Mishura Sadin Bechlal? It's a beautiful story with Reb Hillel Parachet. Little Parachet told it. Not sure what his involvement was. That the Tzemach Tzedek explained in a Maimer what's Chesed Sheba Chesed. Al Pi Chassidus. And a group of Chassidim was standing around back at home, and they were stark gekocht in the word from Tzemach Tzedek, but what's chesed shebechesed. So the Misnagdi Sherov there, who said, yeah, look, everybody's so excited about this idea of chesed shebechesed. I heard long ago in Smargon from the Rosh Yeshiva, the Tzaddik so-and-so, that chesed is the Megita Oreman an alten Porshich. Give a poor man an old pair of shoes. Und chesed shebechesed is the Megita noch a Schwok auf the verrichten im Schuh. You add the means of fixing, huh?
Poverty at that time is the reality. You have a shich, all this, the big thing, you have a work to them.
Who saw you?
Did you say?
So I heard a long time ago what's chesed shebechesed. A favor with a bonus. So people acted according to their conception of what's Shura Sadin and what Lefnibin Shura Sadin. Shura Sadin is tzedakah, in which include the shoe. The bonus that's already beyond. The tvok is already beyond. Sure, there were people acted Lefnim Shura Sadin.
Siddim Arishenim var Yishem Shachas Mispalim. Siddim Arishenim var Yishem Shachas Mispalim. They're Chassidim.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry, the Machzed or the Father?
Bill Paritcher told the story.
So,
I'm not sure whether he was one of the group.
So how does the Machzed come into it?
Spoke about chesed.
The Machzedek was the one who explained the chesed shebechesed al pi chassidus.
And that's
So that's the second beer. That chassidus is lefnim mishura sadin. Third beer. Mailas ta chassidus hu sha'koiches hativim naasim koiches elikim. Probably should be two youth. That the natural koiches become getlache koiches. And he explains in the Ha'ores that in the Rebbe Rashab Maimer, he talks about that through the fact that Chassidus works with Mibisori Echze Elika, that the goof and the koiches of a person are a means of understanding the Spheres Salyonis, and there's a word, the Friedrich Rebbe in Lekut Diburim, he says that also in the name of Reb Hillel, that Reb Hillel said that before he came to Chassidus Chabad, he couldn't stand the goof. It's the cause of all the troubles in Avodas Hashem. But when he came to learn Chassidus, and he understood the neshama of the word, then he gained a newfound respect for the goof. What the neshama of the word, that the goof is a spakula. The goof is the lens in order to see Getzlichkeit. It's not that you happen to have a handy morsel. Handy, it's at the end of your arm, you have a morsel for Likus. No, that is the function of the goof to be a spakula, a lens, in order to be able to see a Likus. And the Friedrich Rebbe is very excited. He said, was a kluge b'shefenish is a chossid. What a clever creature. Als in a word, that an Neshome in dem Wort. So the word is mi bisori erzeleka. The Neshome of the word is that's why I have the goof in order to function as a lens to be able to see a likus. So by using your natural koiches as a way of seeing Getlachkeit, the natural koiches become Getlach. Okay. Okay, my Rabbeinu Hazdoken, Balatanya Vashulchan Aruch, Kol Inyan HaChasidis Hu L'Shanes Teva Midoisam. To change the naturalness of one's midas. L'rak L'Shana Midoisav Ativim. If a person has a bad mina, he's a balkas, he's a balgaive, so he has to change those midas. That's not the chiddush of Chassidus. But the chiddush is that a person has good midas, but they're natural good midas. So take those natural midas and make them get lacher midas. In other, simple pshat is that you're doing good because it's good and it's godly to do good. That much with the Alter Rebbe that there was a man who was just a do-gooder. That was his life, and he was on every committee in town, and he was behind every good cause. He came to the Alter Rebbe. He wasn't a chassid. He came to the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe explained to him that Rashi says, it's from Gemara, Chulin, why is a stork called a chastido? She'oiso chastidus im chavroisteho. It does acts of kindness with its fellow birds. Other birds fight, but this chastidish bird, oiso chastidus im chavroisteho. So when this guy who was vice had an edelkeit, when he thought into himself that all the good that he's been doing all these years, he's finally reached the level of a stork, I think gechalished. That's the outcome of all my avodah. I reached the level of the Alter Rebbe said, chalish and darfmanish medafton. The point is not to faint over your situation, but to work on yourself. He became a chosted. So a natural midah, a good midah. And halavayim will techala gewünschen that we should have that natural goodskeit. But nevertheless, that's a natural midah. Gam midas toivish beteva kol yisrael b'tol doisom. The Alter Rebbe said that toiv shebenoiga, that the better side of a klippah. But it's not getlach, it's not because of the Eibishter, it's not coming from the Eibishter, like mahu racham avata racham. So the point of Chassidus is l'shanos teva midos, of the tivius of the midas. The third beer. Fourth beer. Todas HaChasidus chicho, asher kol echad ve'echad, gam mi she'en lo neshama gevoyo, v'gam lo yizicha chesatzmoi. Now, before Chassidus, such a person would have been invited out of the circle of Kabbalah. Go fix yourself up, and then you'll come to learn Pnimius, Torah. But Chassidus was mechadish, that even someone who doesn't have an edle high neshama, and practically he was not mizdachach himself through his avodah, even he yuchal lahasig elekus. Ki al yedei zeh shebetoras hachassidus shetoras hachassidus be'ero es oinyonim shal chelek hasod shebetoras. Through the explanations in Chassidus, And Vikirvosom Todas Chassidus brought the ideas of Sod closer El HaSeichel, Biduk Mois, Misholim, Bikoiches Utchunes HaNefesh, Bivtori Erzelika. So by bringing it closer to a person, Nitno Efshoret L'chol Echad B'Yechad Lahasig Gam Chelik Zeh Shabbatorah. V'lo Rak Ba'Seichel Shebenafshu Elikis. Not only with the seichel, a getliche kind of koyach ha-seichel, ela gam ba-seichel shebenafshe ha-sichlis, ad ba-seichel shebenafshe ha-bahamis, you can understand the liquid. So that's the chiddush of Chassidus, that it enables every person to understand sod, pnimis ta-Torah. So l'chayda, this is very different from having midas toives or practicing lifnim yeshuras tadin. The Rebbe moving up posh kidel kamon, obvious, asher toiras tachsidis in the kud achas. She'ena murkeves miprotim shoinim. Chassidus is not some combination, agglomeration of a bunch of different ideas. Umikiven shekol ha-mailes shenemru bebiurim anal or beoid biurim. Mailes shoine sein, since all these biurim are different from each other, are muchrach shemailos elu einon magdirois umematzois. They don't define, they don't exhaust it. Mehuso shel Toras HaChasidus. Mehuso shel HaChasidus hi nekuda atzmis hamuvshetes minyonim protim. One essential nekuda, elo mitar nekudos o atzmis nintzois umistayfis mimeno mailes hanal. But because it's a nekuda pshuto, not complicated, it can grow into all these individual minors. What is that nekuda atzmis? He can meduba le'el ba'mayim should be yisoidoi u'mayim shel kvod kedushat admor murashab nishmos seiden. What is the nekuda atzmis of Chassidus? Hamshochas oir chodosh mi bechinas pnimius haketzer. Ulamayla yoiser hamshochas bechinas pnimius atik mamish bechinas ein sof shenimtzo beradlo. Now, exactly what the pnimius atik ein sof in the radlo, I couldn't help you with that. But the first part of it is the oir chodosh mibchinas pnimius haketzer. In other words, Bechlal, we know that Torah is not a manual. Not like the Eibishter created man, and then, being that man wouldn't know which way to turn, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, so the Eibishter gave a Torah first to Bnei Noach and then to Yidden, Torah Mamish. So he gave them a Torah in order to direct their lives. According to that, it would come out that first come people. And then Torah comes in order to be mashlim the people, to perfect them. So who's first? People. No, that's not true. It's your Torah, it's your Chochmah, the Eibishter Chochmah, the Eibishter Rotzen, the Eibishter taught it to us. And therefore we know what to do and what's right and all that, but the Torah starts long before there's even a thought of man. Not only before, what? So the Rebbe in a Siche, V'zois Tabroche, I'll say it very bekitzer. But this is the Siche which you can live with. Very kedai to learn a couple of dozen times. The Torah finishes off, Asher Osa Moshe Le'eni B'nei Yisrael. What did Moshe do? He broke the luchas. So the Rebbe asked two questions. First of all, that's what you find at the Shevach from Moshe to fit the epitaph, is that he broke the luchas. Second of all, that's the way you finish Torah with Shviras HaLuchas. Should be something about the mile of Torah. So B'negea, why Moshe broke the luchas, remember he did it midaitoi, shloisha dvorim also Moshe midaitoi, is because Moshe saw that it's either or. Either it'll be Yidden will be Kayam and the luchas should be broken. Remember the moshel about the king who went off abroad. He comes back, he hears there's some hanky-panky going on in the court. So he was going to charge the matronista, queen or engaged to be queen, al koponim. So the good friend of the king went and tore up the ksubah. So she would be judged as a pnuya and not as an eshes isha, the malka. The Vala, they did an investigation and they discovered that it wasn't her at all. It was one of the shvochas who was involved in the hanky-panky. So that's how he saved the queen. Al derech zeh, Moshe Rabbeinu was told by the Eibishter, heret mimeni v'ashmidem. So Moshe Rabbeinu tore up the ksubah. What's the ksubah? The luchas. So he smashed the luchas because the luchas are a kitrek against Yidden, that they have a bond with the Eibishter like Eishetish. So he smashed the luchas, so they're like a pnuya. So Moshe Rabbeinu saw either Yidden are Kayim or Torah is Kayim. So Moshe's Oiv Yisrael Hoya, to rather let the Torah not be gone, then Yidden should not be gone. So he broke the lucha. That's the Shevach of Moshe, his Abbas Yisrael, and his concern for Yidden. Good. Why does Torah end on that note? Because at the end of Torah, the Rebbe explains, the Torah itself says what Torah is about. And here the Rebbe brings the Tona de Eliyahu, that there are two things which preceded the world, Torah of Yisrael. Now, I don't know of the two which came first. So, Darkon Shobnei Odom Oimrim, people usually say that Torah came first. But Bani Oimer Eliyahu says, Ani Oimer that Yisrael Kodmu. Because Dabar B'nai Yisrael, Tabat B'nai Yisrael, and Murder B'nai Yisrael said all presupposes the existence of Yidden that Torah is addressing. So Yisrael Kodmu. So the Rebbe explains it, I'm going to paraphrase. You can think of things in two ways. You can think of it that the Eibishter had a mission. That mission is called Torah. Who is going to carry out that mission? So the Eibishter made a nation who will carry them out. Carry out the directives of Torah. According to that, who comes first? Torah. Oimrani, so the Medrash is Machadish, Yisrael Kodmu. The Eibishter wants that there should be Nishomas down here who will become a Dira for the Eibishter. But what is going to be Megala, the milas of those Nishomas? After all, they came down in Olam Hazeh, and then Islabish and Aguf, and Nefesh HaBahamis. So you're not going to be aware of the qualities of the Neshama. So the Eibishter gave a Torah, which is Megala, different facets of a Yiddish Neshama. So each mitzvah expresses one facet of the Neshama. So who came first? In the Eibishter Machshava, Yisrael Kodmu. And Torah is a way, is a key to unlock that the neshama, so it should be able to carry out its function of being a dira for the Eibush. So, Take, Yisrael Kodmu, but that's in the Shoydish of Neshomas and the Shoydish of Torah. We're talking about practically speaking. When people think that Torah is given for you, as Kabbalah Batish person. Torah tells you what's good, what's. But the idea that Torah is not there bechlal for people. Torah is the Eibishter's Chochmah, the Eibishter's Rotzen. So that we know. Now, one step further, not only is the Torah there be'etzem with outer world, that's a pshat Torah kodma la'olam, but Torah is mushresh in Oyer and Sof. That is the Oyer. When the Eibishter, I never saw this in these years, but this is the way it comes out. When the Eibishter came down on Har Sinai, he wasn't broadcasting a message to the people. He was Nizgala. What comes out of the Eibishter when he's Nizgala? Torah comes out. That's light. What comes out of a moor? Light. It's not that the light said, okay, I want you to be in a place of light, I'm going to shine for you. That is the Hizgalus of moor. So when the Eibishter came down and was begilui aton nigleisto, so what came out? Torah came out. So it's bechlal, it's miyuchat with the Eibishter. And it's long before the Eibishter, I don't know, long before, but even before the Eibishter has a thought about the world, there's already his Torah, his Rotzen or Atzmi in a different form from the Torah that we have. But his Rotzen or Atzmi and his Chochma Atzmi, I don't know how there's Chochma Atzmi, but Al Koponim, that Torah. The Oyer Chodosh that comes in Chassidus is that a Elikus comes through. It's not only what the Eibishter wants, but the Eibishter himself comes through in his Torah, in his Chochmah, in his Rot, because we learn Torah for thousands of years.
How is that different from what you just said? How is that different from what you said, that the Gilead of Matan Torah was Torah, the Eibishter was Nizgal? What are you saying now? What's the Eibishter?
Because in Lois Tirtzach has doch nicht the Likus. Why? Because what comes to the people is the practicality of Lois Tirtzach. Chassidus is Megala, how the Likus comes through. That's the pneumius of all the Tzibuim. That the Oyer Chodesh, which is L'maylam, is the Ishtalshlus, which doesn't get covered up by its Tziyurim.
So at Matan Torah they heard the practicality, not to get what they.
Noch einmal Matan Torah wird nicht sein. So whatever was meant to be in Nizgala was already in Nizgala in Matan Torah. Afal Pikein, Lag BaOmer or Yutas Kislev, our Rosh Hashanah for Pnimis Torah, or the time of Nistinas Pnimis Torah. So it came in Slavim that it was more and more Nizgala. The last paragraph of base. The Indians, this very idea, that Torah is the Oyer Chodosh or Oyer Sof, machriach asher kol ha-mailis shel Chassidus probably. Hamavuores b'mekoyim shoinim all these different miles that Chassidus has, hein rak histafus minikudoso o atmist. They all branch off from the essential nikud of Chassidus, ki mekivin sha Chassidus. He hamshochas bechinas ein sof harei movin uposhet asher ein sof hu ho'atzmi. V'chol sharu inyonim einam ela nimtzoin u'mesuvovim mimeno. Everything else is an outgrowth or an outcome of the Ein Sof that Nizgala through Chassidus. Okay, then the Rebbe go down to talk about that Torah B'chlal is that way. Torah is miyuchad with the Eibishter, and therefore it had all possible wonderful qualities which you could come up with. The best part of those theories are found in Torah. But in Torah B'chlal, it doesn't come through. You don't see that this is the Getzlichkeit. Because the Tziyurim of Torah, Pshat, or Remez, or Drush, or Sod, they come across as their own inyan. And that is mailim on the quality of Torah that's there, that it's miyuchad with Torah and Sof. But in Chassidus, it does come through. The levush is a thin veil, and it's not mailim on the oil and stuff that comes through.
What does that mean? Oh, you learn a specific Bible, specific Indian, specific beer. Why is that so different to any other Indian?
Try learning a page of Chassidus and forgetting about the Eibishter. Possible. You learn Shosh Nogach Taporo, very, very good and holy and clever, but lav dafke that it came from the Eibishter. I mean, in your perception, it doesn't come through that this is the Eibishter's Chochmel Yoina in Atzilus or beyond. Whatever Shosh Nogach Taporo is there. The form, the beer, batoyu and tikkun, is nothing but a lekus like this, a lekus is like that, in this form or that form of it. All the biurim of Chassidus, Olamis, and Sfiris, it's all about a lekus. Man kann nicht da wegtreten from Ein Sof. Okay? What time have we got to? Quarter after?
4, yeah. 4:15.
We have 15 minutes. Yeah.
Something from Hashem, no?
That was it.
Oh, this is- Okay.
Eventually, the Rebbe comes around to say that the Torah Chassidus is the Mashiach of Torah. Being that we know that the Baal Shem Tov was told by the Neshama of Mashiach that then Mashiach will come. So Mizchoro Neda Mehusa, what the Mehus of Chassidus, Mashiach. And that's why when you make it Chassidus, that's when Mashiach comes. Because Chassidus is the Bechinas Mashiach. Why Hafotza should be so important? What's the meaning of Hafotza Tamayonis Davke? So the Rebbe says that this is the Ein Sof that coming through in Torah Chassidus. Since Chassidus is this Galus Ein Sof means it doesn't stop anywhere. It doesn't stop in a particular circle of Eden. It doesn't stop in a particular circle of intelligence. It's Ein Sof. it irradiates and pervades everything and everyone. So the thought of Chassidus, Hamayonis, is what brings out the Ein Sof in Chassidus. And that's the B'chinas Moshiach. So therefore, the Galus of Torah's Chassidus in a way of Afotze, that is the union of Moshiach coming through. In Ois Yud, there's another Nekudah, also from the Rebbe Rashab. Where is it? Page 57. No, it's Yud, but it's not there. Oh, it's page 55. Ois Tes. There's a mice that the Friedrich Rebbe told Achron Shol Pesach, Tov Freis Tadik Zayin or Tadik Ches, that the Rebbe Rashab was once playing with the Razor in the Rebbe Marash's house outside, and children play what they live. So the Razor suggested, let's play Rebbe and Chosid. The Rebbe Rashab once refused, and he said, "Was a Rebbe is weiß ich nicht, aber a Chosid weiß ich ist kein Spiel nicht, und über Spiel ist kein Chosid nicht." So he refused. Another time, again, he must have suggested, and the Rebbe Rashab agreed. The Razor was the elder one. He sat on a high chair, the Rebbe, and the Rashab went into him as a chos. The Rashab, the Razor was a year plus older, so he had already started learning diktuk. He was about 6. But the Rebbe Rashab had not started yet. So the Razor asked the Rebbe Rashab, "Tell me, why is it in Moidani," that's how it gets in here, why is it in Moidani there's a pintale? Shmosi bechemlo, pintale, Rabbe Munosecha. So the Rebbe Rashab said, "You're asking me why you need the pintale, mir dastach ader ikre god the pintale." I think the main point of it here is the pintale, the pintale yid. Huh?
5 years old.
The Zohar was 6. The Rashab was 5, yeah. So he asked him further, the why in Birchas Krishma and Avasoilom, it says Chemlok, Doilov, you say that again, Chemlok, but no Pintale. So the Rashab said, "Nu zog du bist a Chepsabal Diktuk." So the Razor said, "I don't know why there's no Pintale." So the Rashab, the Pintale sich voneinander gespreit oder voneinander gegangen in ganzen Davening. In the course of davening, the Pintale spread all over. It's no longer a dot. It's a shetach. And Friedrich Rebbe explained that this is the idea of Chassidus of the tefillah to take the nekuda, the pintale of the neshama, and to spread it around through all the koiches and all the evorim. So the Rebbe brings it at the bottom of page 55. ובזה יובן פסגומה של כבוד קדושות אדמו"ר מהור שבת בשמוסי עדן. שאומר בימי ילדותוי, אשר הנקודה שאחרי טבעס בחמלו. Where is that? שבמועד עני צריכים לפוישתו, you have to spread it out, voneinander spreiten, על כל היום כולוי. This is already the Rebbe Pshat. כי בכל רגע ורגע שבמשך כל היום צריכה להיות או עבודה דמועד עני. So the Rebbe is saying, beyond even spreading it out in alle, es voneinander gegangen in alle Ivoren. Beyond that, every point of a person's day has to be an expression of the Moidani. There's a voneinander gegangen in all the avoide of a person's day. So this is the Teuchen of Moidani, and the Kuda of the Neshama, which is represented in every one of a person's actions in Avodas Hashem. So this is al derech like the inyan of Chassidus and the Kuda Atzmis, which is expressed in all the various biurim in Chassidus. Okay, stop here.
After noon or after the person was involved, there was a gvir. And under the gvir that he was prepared to put together a table from the Tiftika Yungalite, that they would take the whole siddur and they would work it out along the lines of Maida Ani, chapter Dushim Sayyid. And
After the Rebbe said this,
no, after they would to do the whole siddur based upon the same stuff. And it was almost ready to go, but for some reason it never took off. And he had 7 guys who were going to sit. This never happened.
they never started.
It was about to start.
It's not too late.
Huh?
It's not too late.
I don't know if it's too late or not too late, but it was a tremendous absurd. I keep on calling, well, I kept on calling the guy. I said, no, it's such a, go for it, do it. Not the money guy was always prepared to give money. The Chachayim had to do it. And he was responsible, right?
I hear that the Rebbe that on the Rambam be like Kehati and Mishnayos.
Then the Rebbe what?
Somebody told the Rebbe that come up from Rambam
Yeah.
be like Kehati and Mishnayos.
So the Rebbe say?
That's a good idea, but I don't see the person that could do it.
But
If there is dimensions can understand. Rebbe Gehati, I'm not saying it's right.
I heard the Shmaka from Zelitzin, I try to listen to Zelitzin's Ayem. Comes up with some nice things. But because the Rebbe Rashab, when the Rambam from Chassidus. So this is why the first mimer is Keser, which the Rambam begins with the Inyan of the Eibush at the highest level. And the last thing is Hilchas Malachim and Mochamas,
Yes,
which from Amalek and Kate Samalcheshach, the same thing like the Rambam. He has a great mind, that guy. He must spend hours.
Oh, this was in your father's house.
Thinking
He's
it out.
got the